Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is the finale, at least for now, of this 30-year-long movie franchise, and it was an unbelievable disappointment. I'm a big fan of this franchise. I don't really like the second one, but other than that, I think it's incredibly consistent. I think it's incredibly entertaining. I love the passion that Tom Cruise has poured into this franchise over the years. As for the Christopher McQuarrie ones, I love Fallout. I think it's incredible. I don't like Rogue Nation and Dead Reckoning anywhere near as much as Fallout, but I still like them. And even though those two aren't among my favorites, I was still looking forward to this last one. And I am shocked to say that this may be my least favorite one of all. Now, if you're a Mission Impossible fan, should you see it? Yeah, obviously. See it for yourself. You might like it. I didn't, and I'm here to tell you why. But first, I do have to praise Tom Cruise and his commitment to this franchise and everything that he does to movie making in general. He's great, and when you get to the stunts, especially one towards the end that takes place on planes, I can't believe he's alive. Like, it genuinely feels like you are about to watch Tom Cruise die at any possible second. Even when you know there's so many incredibly advanced safety precautions at play, there's so much that's digitally removed that you don't see, you know he's not in anywhere near the danger that the character of Ethan Hunt is. It still looks so real, and you can tell that he's really doing these stunts that even if you attached a million wires to the vast majority of people, they still wouldn't do. Like during this final action set piece, I'm taken out of the world of the movie in a good way, where I'm no longer just fearing for Ethan Hunt. I'm genuinely fearing for the actor, even though I know he's fine, because that's just how good they are at selling these stunts and making them look and feel so authentic. It's like, dude, how? What's going on? Is it Xenu? Is it the magic of Scientology? It just lets you survive anything. The action set pieces in this movie personally don't do as much for me as like the Burj Khalifa from Ghost Protocol or most of anything in Fallout, but just in terms of pure craftsmanship and wondering how the hell they pulled it off, it is very impressive to watch. But the supporting cast is also great. Ving Rhames as Luther. You know, this series would not be the same without him. He's been there the whole time. Ghost Protocol only a tiny little bit, but he's been there the whole time. He is essential. Benji has been here most of the time, Simon Pegg, and it's great having them, all these returning characters for the finale. And you got the newer ones like Haley Atwell, Pom Klementieff, so many other returning faces from various other movies, Henry Czerny. I think all the performances are good, and you could tell that some of them were very emotional about the fact that this may be their last one. This is carried over from Dead Reckoning, but I do enjoy the entity as a villain. I think it's very timely. AI is a bit of a plague in many ways right now, even if we're just talking about artistically, all of these people making this dog shit Studio Ghibli ass art, and then when you go beyond art, just the implications of it's just fascinating because we've all seen the movies. We've all seen Terminator. We've all seen all of them. But then we just do it anyway. And I'm not saying that AI is going to kill us all. But I'm not saying that. There's so much fuckery about with AI. That's what I'm saying. And Tom Cruise is the perfect man to defeat it. Mr. Movies. Mr. Practical Stunts. Mr. You better wear your fucking masks because we can't let this production get shut down because these people need these jobs to feed their families. This guy cares about this stuff. So I think things like this and Top Gun Maverick showing like the power of human ingenuity and the human spirit in a time like the one that we're in, I think is very important, and especially in Mission Impossible, where that is such a core theme that has run throughout the series of the spirit, especially of Ethan Hunt. I actually really like how this capitalizes on some of the running themes, because the entity is an AI. It expects people to behave logically, and that's how it's going to predict their moves, and so Ethan is encouraging everybody to be illogical, which is kind of his whole thing. He does crazy, death-defying shit all the time, with no hesitation. It just immediately enters his head, well, I guess I'm just gonna climb the outside of that building, and then he just does it. Everybody around him is like, no, you're not gonna do that, right? And he's like, yeah? What are you talking about? Of course I am. So this movie is about him convincing people to do the illogical thing and trust him, because to a cold AI on paper, it wouldn't make sense for them to do that. But Ethan's friends, the people who have been around him this whole time, know, yes, absolutely, it may seem crazy, but we are always going to put our trust in Ethan because he always gets shit done. And so I kind of like how this capitalizes on that. But I have so many issues with this movie. A lot of the early reactions were talking about how the first hour is boring. I don't quite put it that way. I was actually really into it at the beginning. It's more of the middle for me. There are a lot of flashbacks, and there are a lot of recaps of previous films. Maybe I wasn't bothered by it yet at the beginning because I didn't know how extensive it would become. And it's conflicting because this is directly following up Dead Reckoning. Not everybody in the world saw that movie, and it's the 8th one over 30 years, so I get that you need to remind people or inform them of things from the other movies because they haven't seen them. I understand, but I think there's better ways to do it than just having these flashbacks, having people repeatedly just say the things that Ethan has done in the other movies. I don't respect somebody who walks into number 8 having not seen any of the others and expects to understand it. I don't understand that mindset, and I don't think that person should be catered to. I get it to some degree, having little reminders here and there, but I just think it's too much. I think they go overboard. The movie just stops on many occasions to just kind of tell me things as a fan that I already know. And I think you could have more cleverly weaved it into the script rather than doing that. There are also a lot of callbacks. As we've seen, many characters are returning, like Kittredge returned last time. They're bringing back so many things from other movies. It's even more so this time, and there's one in particular that I really like, one returning character who's very essential to the plot, and I like the way they were used. That was a really good idea. Definitely enjoyed that, but there's a lot of them that are just like references for the sake of references, random name drops, callbacks that don't add anything at all. It turns out this is actually connected to this thing from this other movie. Does that change what it is and what we have to do about it? No. This guy is connected to this other guy from this other movie. Does that change what he's doing? No. He literally says, that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. My motivation is actually completely unrelated to that. Well, then what was the point? They're just name drops to make you say, oh, I know that name. And then the movie continues on, as it otherwise would have. It's not a big deal. It's not like it doesn't make sense. It's not like it ruins anything about the other movies. It's just not necessary, and it feels like in a movie that's 3 hours long and where I have many issues with its story, focusing on connecting dots that were perfectly fine already unconnected, it should not have been a priority. You didn't need it. And as for this movie's story, man, Christopher McQuarrie has been very open about his approach of kind of crafting the set pieces first and maybe writing the script around them. I've heard details about how it's not that like they shoot without a script, at least according to, I think it was Simon Pegg in an interview one time, more so that they are crafting the script as they go. But shit, dude, this is 3 hours. It's the culmination of a 30-year-long film series. Maybe you should prioritize having a tight script from the beginning. I've had problems with some of his other movies because of that. Like in Rogue Nation, the thing that they're trying to get the whole time, you can listen to, I don't know if it's an interview or the director's commentary or whatever, but they say, yeah, we didn't actually know what that thing was until like partway through writing the movie. We hadn't decided yet. And then in one scene, we had to just pick something and figure out what it was going to be. And so there are things in the movies that just feel like they weren't thought out, and it has never been more clear and more felt on screen than with this film. That approach, which I think is irresponsible and ridiculous and kind of lazy, plus the fact that they were trying to film this with Dead Reckoning, plus the COVID issues, plus the fact that maybe not as many people saw Dead Reckoning as they would have liked. This feels so jumbled and messy, especially the first half, when you're getting so many of these flashbacks and they're intercut so randomly. We'll be over here and then we'll be getting some flashbacks to this, and then we're suddenly over here and we're getting some flashbacks to that. There's one character in particular who is in a physical condition that they've never been in before and is completely unaddressed and unexplained. They say that the beginning of Dead Reckoning was only 2 months before this. But one of our main characters is in a state that is just like, what happened to them? How did they get here? And sure, you can just assume, but this position that this character is in, it just cuts to it so suddenly that it's disorienting. I'm like, what? Is that happening in the present? Because there's like another scene where Ethan gets a bunch of predictions from the entity where he's seeing possible futures, and I'm like, is that the future? Is that person in that condition right now? We've never seen them in that condition before. I don't know why they would be in that condition. And it just presents it as a matter of fact. And it's a little confusing in the moment, because now I'm not thinking about the story anymore. Now I'm thinking that I missed a scene, or you forgot to include a scene. Especially because this condition that this character is in is literally not relevant. It doesn't even matter. So why did you do it? You show them at the beginning of the movie, and they seem a little bit better off. And then all of a sudden, a couple minutes later, we cut to them and they're in a completely different state. And it's like, what is going on? What is this editing? There is so much exposition. There are so many scenes of characters sitting in chairs, just telling us what we need to do, telling us what the entity is going to do, telling us what has happened in all the other movies, these things that I already know. I swear it felt like I had to sit through 4 different scenes telling me the exact same thing about the entity that I already knew from the last movie. I didn't even need to hear it once in this one, let alone 4 times. And I'm not just saying that I want action nonstop. Not at all. The first film is probably the least action-packed. It's more about espionage and suspense, and it's one of my absolute favorites. But that's another approach that McQuarrie likes to take, where he just kind of dumps the exposition all at once to get out of the way. But sometimes he's really good at it. Like in Dead Reckoning at the beginning, when Ethan intrudes on that meeting that everybody is having, it's not just exposition, it's also tension, because there's a guy in the back of the room who's Ethan, but we don't know that yet, and he's just standing there menacingly. We don't know who he is, we don't know what he wants, he's hearing all this information, and so it's not just about us getting the information, it's also about the tension of what that guy's gonna do. But you don't get that in this. It's literally just people sitting in rooms half of the movie just saying shit, and at some point, it's enough. Move on. The way the plot is structured is so messy in that way. Like, there'll be somebody who sends Ethan to somebody else, who then gives him permission to go to somebody else, who then gives him the thing that he needs to do. Cut out the middleman. You don't need the part in the middle. Just have the first person send him to the last person. It's fine. We're not going to question it. If that middle scene was exciting or suspenseful or interesting or about character building, sure. But it's just more people sitting in chairs giving exposition, telling us about the next person they're going to send us to. Just do that. Just send us to that person. Especially when that character in that middle scene never shows up again. They do, technically, for 2 seconds later, just to show that they still exist. For all intents and purposes, they never show up again. Not only that, but this character mentions something about their past, and it's important to them, and apparently to Ethan, and it's like essential to the choices that this character makes. And I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. They mention a date in 1996, which is actually a meta reference, but in universe, I didn't know what they were talking about. It wasn't a reference to any of the other movies. I wouldn't know. I just rewatched them all. I don't know if it was a reference to Ethan's past with Gabriel. If it was, that was not stated. We don't really know anything about that. I don't really care about that. So I just had no idea what this character was even talking about. Did you forget another scene? Like, what do you can't include information that's referencing things that have never been explained before. What are you doing? If it's not supposed to mean anything in universe and it's just a meta reference, you can't include it as like a pivotal plot point, as a reason a character makes the decision they make, because then I'm just once again distracted trying to figure out, what is this character talking about? What is this story that they're talking about? When you didn't even actually write a story for them, or if you did, you didn't include it in the final cut, even though you had 3 goddamn hours. I brought up Ethan's past with Gabriel, so let's talk about that. If you wanted any more expansion on that storyline from the very, very, very little of it that we got in Dead Reckoning, too fucking bad, you get nothing. You lose. It doesn't expand on it at all. Gabriel doesn't even feel like a personal villain to Ethan in this movie. The fact that he is the entire reason that he joined the IMF, they don't expand on that anymore. He killed some lady. Because he just did, and who was she? It's never mentioned at all in this movie ever again. He just feels like any other generic mustache-twirling villain. So what was the point? I didn't think he was very interesting in the last movie. I liked the entity, but him as the physical threat, the guy that we're actually dealing with face-to-face, I thought was very lackluster. But I didn't think that was that big of a deal, because they have a part 2. But no, he's not in this movie that much at all, and when he is, the personal side of their rivalry is not even addressed, and he's just a generic bad guy who I didn't care about at all. It'd be like if instead of Thanos being the villain of Infinity War and Endgame, it was like Malekith. And sure, the entity is there, but that's not an excuse to have the other villain be shitty. They can both be good. And even though I still like the entity as an idea, I actually don't prefer the way it was used in this film. I prefer the way it was used in Dead Reckoning on a smaller, more personal scale, when we're talking about things that it can use to trick our main characters, and it can call Ethan on the phone and pretend to be Benji and lead him in the wrong directions. Things like that are way more interesting and way more scary. When you elevate it to the global scale, which they've done in this movie, and now it's threatening to nuke the entire world, which is a plot that this franchise has done before, I get it. The stakes are there. I understand. It's very well explained. Too much. It's explained over and fucking over again. But it's just not as cinematically interesting when what you're getting is like a screen and occasionally different places on the screen light up that show that the entity has taken over that place. That's the difficult part about making your villain an unseen force that lives in a computer. And I don't really think they nailed it as well as they did in the last one. It didn't really feel like this ever-present looming threat the way it did in Dead Reckoning to me. Even though I do understand the stakes, I get what they're fighting for, I didn't feel it as much. Because we have done this before. We have done the nuke stuff before. And this movie takes itself so seriously. The other movies are fun, and they're funny, and they're exciting. Not just in the action, but just in the character moments, and the dialogue, and the suspense, and the humor. They're fun, all of them. This one has barely any humor at all. It was clearly an intentional choice to make it more serious. And if that's what they wanted to go out on this note where they were really focused on telling a serious finale, then that was their choice. I don't think it worked. It's not what I wanted. I didn't want a complete departure of tone in the 8th movie in a franchise. Because again, it's not like this is new. It's not like the world hasn't been at stake before. It has been many a time, and we've been able to crack jokes during it just fine. Ilsa Faust is not even mentioned. I mean, I guess you didn't have to, but it just kind of felt like you're acknowledging and celebrating everything this franchise has ever done to a fault, to where you're prioritizing flashbacks over including scenes that are necessary for this story, but not even a name drop. Nobody is ever like, pour one out for Ilsa. Nothing. Speaking of Ilsa, Grace, who's here now, I liked her in Dead Reckoning, but it did feel like they were trying to get me to like her unnaturally fast. Like the movie was putting so much priority on her, and Ethan was putting so much priority on her, that it felt a little unearned. And especially since they ended up killing Ilsa, it felt a little weird. Like they wanted her to be her replacement, and so we needed to get attached to her fast. And I was like, okay, I like her, but hit the brakes a little bit, buddy. Like you're trying to force her on me a little too much. Makes me like her not as much. And then in this movie, I swear Ethan treats her like she's the second coming of Christ. The way he looks at her and interacts with her, sometimes it feels like he's known her for as long as Luther. And I'm like, back off, movie. I love Luther. I love Benji. I love Ethan. I like this woman fine, but I don't really know her like that. Like they kind of try to treat her as if she has the importance of somebody who's been there the whole time. If it was Ilsa, who would have been here at this point for 4 movies, sure. Also, it's been a pretty common thread in these movies of people praising Ethan, and it's deserved. He's a great guy. He's selfless. One of the running themes is how he will never sacrifice anybody's lives. I think a lot of the movies have explored that really well, especially Fallout. He's always on the move. He's always heroic. He's always trying to save anybody, even if he doesn't know them, and they're never going to know that he did anything at all. And when you get lines like, Hunt is the living manifestation of destiny, or he's a mind-reading, shape-shifting agent of chaos, those lines are so crazy and over the top and badass that it's awesome, and it feels earned. But there are times in this movie when a character will turn to Ethan, look him dead in the eyes, and be like, "You are the coolest, most special, most perfect man who has ever lived." Not quite, but I'm not even really exaggerating that much. And at that point, it no longer feels like you're glazing up Ethan. It feels like you're trying to jerk off Tom Cruise. And I get that the man has poured his heart and soul and his body into this franchise for so long, but there is a line between being proud of your work and jerking off in the audience's face. I didn't even feel like the emotional moments were earned because this movie was so drawn out, so much more boring than I imagined a Mission Impossible movie could ever be. So sloppy with its storytelling that even though we're saying potentially goodbye to some of these characters, I didn't feel it that strongly, and that sucks. That makes it so much worse than just being a bad Mission Impossible movie. It's a bad finale. That's so much worse. Like you're trying to capitalize on the emotion that I've built with these characters in all the other films. But in this one, you didn't give me anything with them to really make it feel like this goodbye was earned. And that made me feel so sad. And it also makes Dead Reckoning worse, because now that's a part 1 to a part 2 that I never want to watch again, which makes me never want to watch Dead Reckoning again, even though I like a lot about that movie, because am I going to watch part 1 and then just stop? I walked out so upset. I didn't expect it to be one of my absolute favorites, but I can't believe, genuinely cannot believe that they released it in this state. I think it's kind of unacceptable in this final edit of how this movie was pieced together. I'm shocked that they thought that was a good final product. And plenty of people will think that it is. And that's great. If you got enjoyment out of this, I'm jealous. I'm sad that I didn't like it. I don't want to come across as just ranting like crazy here. I'm just trying to get all my thoughts out of my head. But genuinely, I just did not enjoy almost anything about the way this was executed. When we finally got to the 2 action set pieces, after a really long time, a lot of build up to them, sure, they're good. I didn't find them to be worth it. I love that McQuarrie stuck around for 2, because that gave us Fallout. I think Fallout was such a huge step up from Rogue Nation. I don't even know what happened there. I don't know if he needed to warm up first before he hit it out of the park. I don't like that he stuck around for 4. It just got too repetitive. It's trying to connect all these pieces that didn't need to be connected. Got way too hung up on doing that. We gotta wrap up this thing from the first movie, and this thing from the 3rd one, and this thing from the 7th one, and all these characters have got to come in. And we gotta introduce new characters in this movie, and they've got to have emotional moments, and they've got to have references to other things where we don't even know what they're talking about. And it's just too much, and it loses track of the very simple Ethan and his team going on the mission. Exposition scene 1, telling us what to do, then we go. But this is just so much buildup. In a part 2, when part 1 was already 2.5 hours long, this takes another 1.5 hours of more buildup. And it wasn't interesting or suspenseful buildup. It wasn't well written, particularly dialogue. It wasn't character building. It was just bland, basic, boring exposition, and the payoff was not worth it. To me. My advice to Christopher McQuarrie, just take advice from me. Who am I? Obviously, I'm just some dumbass. But genuinely, I don't think it's a weird thing for me to say. Have a script next time. That's pretty basic advice, right? If this franchise does come back, I'm satisfied with all the action that we've gotten. I hope it returns to its roots. I hope it returns to a little bit more smaller scale. Espionage style. That would be cool. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's just a shame that now I guess I have to consider Fallout the end of this franchise for me. I mean, that's an amazing movie, so in a way that's fine, but I'm just so sad that I didn't like this one bit, and it also ruins the 7th one for me. It looks good, it sounds good, it's got good performances, it's got great stunt work, very impressive stuff. But story, character, fell apart for me entirely. There was a guy in the row in front of me who absolutely hated this movie. How do I know? Because he wouldn't shut the fuck up. Constantly, like sighing and making these noises, and he was doing all these hand motions, like, oh, and he was talking out loud, like saying that he didn't like these scenes, and I didn't like the movie either, man. But be a fucking adult when you're in the theater. If you can't sit there and just keep that to yourself for a while, just leave. Bitch. Fuck that guy. Didn't like this movie. Oh man, I haven't even thought about what I would rate it. Oh no, I don't want to rate it. It makes me sad. It makes me sad to think about how I didn't like it. I don't want to rate it. I can't go higher than a 2.5 out of 5. Could I go lower? Maybe. Am I feeling nice enough right now to leave it at a 2.5? Sure. But that's the highest I could possibly go. Genuinely, it's upsetting. I take no joy in the fact that I didn't like this. I wanted to love it. I trusted you one last time, Ethan, and you betrayed me. I'll never be happy again. Thank you for watching. That covers it for my thoughts, probably, I guess, on this film. Please leave yours down in the comments. This is all just my long-winded opinion. You might have seen all the same things that I did in this film and said, yeah, that worked for me. I actually really liked all that, and that's totally cool. And I want to talk about it down in the comments. If you are on the same page as me and this really didn't work for you, or you actually heavily disagree, I want to have a conversation down in the comment section. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.